What is vicarious liability? Vicarious liability is generally when somebody else is held liable for your sins, your torts. Vicarious liability is best understood in the motor vehicle context. I own a vehicle, my friend drives the vehicle, my friend gets into an accident, I own the vehicle, I am vicariously liable. That is the law in most of the state. There are some states that's not the law, but in New York, most states that is the law. Sometimes it's called the dangerous instrumentality doctrine, but whatever you call it, it's called vicarious liability. Now, in we'll call it a police civilian encounter. Uh, Police officer decides to arrest you. They don't have probable cause. So that is, they see you in the street. They don't like the way you look. They just decide to arrest you. It happens more frequently than, we hate to note. And the one thing now is in the world of the cameras, right, that every police officer has that, that turn on out of nowhere. A lot of these instances are being recorded. In fact, many of you may be aware that in late 2024, there was an instance in an upstate New York correction facility where an inmate was transferred to the Marcy Correctional Facility, and apparently the correction officers weren't too fond of this gentleman and took him into a back room, roughed him up, and apparently killed him. Unbeknownst to the officers, the cameras that they're wearing went off, and everything apparently was seen. And there's a whole big hoopla to that. There's a criminal case, and there's a ton of civil cases, right? And that is, instances where modern technology really sheds light on a lot of encounters that up until this decade used to be a he said, she said. The victim, the person who says they were assaulted by a law enforcement officer, says they got beaten up, they were arrested. The law enforcement officer says something else. It became a credibility contest, and without any, witnesses or people that would generally testify against their fellow officer, those cases didn't generally go well for the defendants, for the injured people. So that's where you see a lot more of this coming out. But how does vicarious liability work? So I'm just going to go to a basic street encounter. I don't really want to talk about, what happened in the Marcy situation. Let's just keep it a street encounter. Police officer arrests you. You did nothing wrong. You spend a night or two in jail. You're released. They drop the charges. You hire a lawyer. The lawyer then brings, not charge, I'm sorry, but brings a civil case against various people. Okay. And that's generally where this is going to come. It's going to be a false arrest. It's going to be, where you were treated poorly in a constitutional violative way, an Eighth Amendment cruel and unusual punishment issue. They didn't give you medication in jail. I mean, that's where you see a lot of these, right? But what would happen at that point? So at that point, your lawyer, if they got the case in time, first thing they would do is they'd file a notice of claim against the municipal agency, the city of New York, or the police department that essentially employed the police officer, right? And you have 90 days to do that. And then upon filing notice of claim, the attorney or your attorney would then, upon expiration of the municipality not taking any action, would be able to file a common law, most likely a false arrest claim, maybe assault battery, but you'd be able to file some type of action against both the officer and their employer under respondeat superior. They were in the line of duty, right? They were on the clock. They were working for their employer. When you work for your employer and you commit an act while in the scope of the employment, respondeat superior, vicarious liability, that kicks in. So a lot of times when you hear of these things occurring, there will be a lawsuit against the police officer and the supervising authority, City of New York, in this hypothetical, right? Now, in the 1983 Spectre, where we're seeking compensation for the Fourth Amendment violation and not for the common law false arrest, the employer, this will be a surprise to many of you, is not vicariously liable, right? So if a police officer arrests you, roughs you up, didn't have any basis to do any of that, while you might very well have that common law false arrest, common law negligence, common law assault battery against both the officer and the city, under 1983 jurisprudence, that would not apply. Now, there's a big exception. The exception is called the Monell Rule. What the Monell Rule says is that if uh, essentially it is a procedure or course and conduct of procedure, it's condoned. Essentially, when the police officer's on the job and they're told you are to arrest people without probable cause, right? And if the plaintiff could prove that, then there is vicarious liability against a municipal agency. Uh, Very difficult to prove. And in many ways, it's unnecessary because, at least in the state of New York, given the way the union contract rules are written, the city will indemnify the errant police officer. So even if the police officer commits a constitutional tort and you're not able to link the city is going to provide a defense and they're going to indemnify that officer. So in many ways, at least in New York, the Monell Rule, you know, it's nice to have the city, it's nice to have the municipality as a defendant on the other side of the caption, but from a practical standpoint, not necessary. But these are things you need to know as you guide yourself through contact between police officer and civilian that sometimes goes askew, goes awry, and you say to yourself, I want to sue the world. Well, you can't necessarily sue the world, but you could sue part of it. Uh, like I said, we handle these cases. If you have any questions, always feel free to contact us. I do hope you found this discussion enlightening. Thank you.